All right. Whoa, that was loud. I wasn't expecting that. Um, First, I want to say thank you to everyone that came out today. I know that I spoke to Keith this morning, uh, and Keith said this is about the best he's felt in a long, long time, and that brought a real big smile to my face. Um, for those of you guys that don't know, we're here for a gentleman named Keith Lamar. He's a good friend of mine. He's also a good friend of a lot of people that are here. So we all came out to support him and organize this event. Before I get into Keith and his story, I also want to say thank you to Musicians United and Make Noise for Black Lives Matter. You guys are awesome for doing all of this. So big ups to you guys for doing that. So I want to jump into Keith. As I said, Keith is a dear friend of mine. He's been in solitary confinement for the last 27 years. He's currently on death row in the state of Ohio, and the state has scheduled to execute him on November 16, 2023. So part of the reason why we're here is to elevate the profile of his case and really bring some attention to the fact that Keith has maintained his innocence for close to 30 years now. He's been very adamant about that. And I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from Keith in my conversations with him is that this isn't a matter of necessarily, he's sort of come to terms with his fate in some ways. And he's, acknowledged that this could very well end in a way that he doesn't want it to, on a gurney with poison pumping through his veins, as he likes to say. But this is a much bigger thing in regards to justice. And Keith really wants the public to see and know that what is being done to him is not just. Not only the fact that he's wrongfully convicted of crimes that he didn't do and has been subject to one of the most astounding racial injustices that I've known of in this country, but that the conditions into which he's been subject to have been very inhumane and psychologically torturous. So we're here to sort of bring light to Keith, bring light to his situation. Keith has curated this entire event with jazz music that he loves, and as much as this is to bring awareness to Keith's situation and elevate the profile, it's also a way to celebrate him and the light that he brings to the world, because it's so bright what he brings. And considering he lives in a world so dark, I find that to be really heartwarming. So I don't want to speak anymore. Keith is going to call in during this concert, just to give you guys a heads up. So that will happen. And he'll have much commentary throughout the course of what we're doing today. So that's all for now. I'm gonna turn it over to Julian, and you guys can get started. I'm gonna move out the way now.
Thank you, guys.
What's up, New York City? The first thing that I want to say is thank you. Thanks to everybody who ventured off from their safe space this afternoon to join us in this place on this day. It means everything to me. Jazz music, according to John Coltrane, is the expression of the human heart, which is the highest expression of our humanity and shared brotherhood. With brotherhood, he said, there will be no poverty. With brotherhood, there will be no war. He spoke of his instrument as a conduit through which higher frequencies emerged.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
He spoke of his instrument as a conduit through which higher frequencies emerged, and said that listening was a participatory act. That the mere fact of presence, of being present to bear witness, was enough to see in opposite reaction to the evil in this society. And he sought to do this through his music. John Coltrane saved my life. In 1963, a bomb went off in the church in Birmingham, Alabama, killing 4 young black girls. John Coltrane.
You have 1 minute remaining.
John Coltrane took up the call to put this tragedy in its proper context. You must feel the sadness, he told the people of America. Similar to what George Floyd's family is called enough to do today. What Breonna Taylor's family and Eric Garner's family is called enough to do. This was Coltrane's way of marking the moment, of not allowing it to slip into the future without notice. It was also his way of summoning the ancestors, causing them to do justice to the situation. Sadly, we are still in Alabama. Alabama by John Coltrane. one of the most warmest sounds on the trumpet. This sound just makes me so determined. I use music as a backdrop to my writing sometimes. I've listened to this song to fire off some feisty letters to several judges over the years. Freddie Hubbard is such a gift to me in my life. Listening to him reminds me to be serious in my poster things, in my poster life. I really try to be. I mean, I'm so sincere, just like Freddie. I love this song, the bass line, the low-key intensity, and the way Freddie soars above it all, which is exactly what I try to do in my life. Real Clay by Freddie Hubbard. 25 years old, I was thrown into a dark prison cell on Ohio's death row. Thrown here for crimes I didn't commit. I've been offered a deal by the people who put me here and told that if I would but plead guilty, I would be spared years of unnecessary pain and suffering. I refused. Instead, I stood on my truth. This song captures perfectly the feeling of desolation I felt in the beginning and the gradual sense of attendance that came as I committed myself to the journey. I wasn't alone in my struggle. The truth would win out. Not only the truth about my situation, but the greater truth about who I am, who we are. We are bigger than the things that confront us, bigger than the pandemic, bigger than mass incarceration, bigger than the poverty and hopelessness that's so many, bigger than the poverty and hopelessness that so many of us experience in this society. Together we are bigger than it all.
Again, you guys are doing an amazing job. Musicians United, big shout out to them. A couple quick things before I introduce next two gentlemen that will be speaking here. If you like, there are copies of Keith's book, Condemned, on that table there. If you want to purchase them at the table. All the money is going towards efforts to elevate his profile. So, and there are also t-shirts there that you can purchase as well. So, I highly encourage you guys to do that. Part of the reason why this is even taking place is because several people have been very much just blown away by Keith's writing and his book, which sort of outlines everything that happened to him and the injustice that he's been subject to. I mean, you talk about prosecutorial misconduct. It was outrageous what they did to him, and then some of the treatment that he's been subject to has been pretty absurd as well. I think the thing with Keith's case that's so important to make note of is we've been very reactive to these incidents with Black lives, right? We talk about George Floyd, we talk about Breonna Taylor, we talk about all these incidents, and we're very reactive after they happen. And the thing that really got me was Keith is still breathing. His life, he's still breathing. His life matters. And it's just as important for us to go even harder for him so that it is extremely, extremely important for us to go hard for him because his life can still be saved, right? And we also need to expose the type of injustices that exist within our system. So even though he's in Ohio, he called in a little bit ago and he just can't believe it. Talked to him, he said, Waleed, we did it. He didn't know what was gonna happen with this, but he's listening to the music and he's just purely like, his soul is full. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you guys for coming out for that reason. We're not anywhere close to being done. And Keith is calling me right now. Hey, Julian. Just give me 1 second.
How everybody doing? It's been a pretty amazing day today. I life so full of gratitude, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for coming out. When we consulted the weather authorities last week, they said it was a 40% chance of rain. And we started making contingency just in case they were right? And a little friend of mine named Jess, who's there with you all, reminded me that we too have a say in whether or not the sun will come out today. She reminded me that we could will the sun to come out, and from what I hear, it's hot as hell there in New York City today. Listen, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think, my life will become what it has. And not the bad stuff, which is a given. I've been in prison for the past 31 years. Yeah, but I'm just talking about the love and the light that has come into my...
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Just speaking about the love and the light that has come into my life over the past several years. Richard Wright, who is one of my favorite authors, said that if you speak out who you are, you will find that you are not alone. That's one of the most beautiful discoveries I made in my 51 years of being on this planet. The system is set up, it's designed to make us feel isolated and alone, but, if we are brave enough to share our struggles, we find that all of us are going through the same things, and that together we have a strength that can't be denied. I was in my early 20s when I was first thrown into this place. The people who put me here wanted me to plead guilty to something I didn't do. In order to clean up a mess they wanted to sweep under the rug. And they expected me to just give up my life, to surrender my dignity and everything that made me a man. But I refused. They were mad about that, and after they sentenced me to death, they put me in solitary confinement and left me there with virtually nothing to hold on to. Everything I owned fit into a brown paper bag, my whole life, which consisted of a washcloth, a toothbrush, a bar of soap, underwear and t-shirts, a book by Richard Wright, and a cassette player, 10 cassettes. That's all I had. I started listening seriously to jazz when I was in my early 20s. A good friend turned me on to A Love Supreme by John Coltrane. I discovered Miles Davis, Freddie Hubbard, Gil Scott, and Brian Jackson, Nina Simone, Bobby Humphrey, and took them into that dungeon with me. They kept me alive. I taught myself how to write in that dungeon, how to fight in that dungeon. I went to bed every night listening to It Never Ended My Mind. Which to me at the time was the most beautiful thing in the world. And I somehow, understood that I was a part of that beauty, that strength.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I'm sitting here on this ball, this exercise ball in the cage. But I got tears running down my eyes because I'm just so humbled by the fact that all of you showed up for me, a stranger. I just want y'all to know I'm very touched by the gesture. Like I said, listening to Miles Davis, listening to the music that y'all listening to tonight is the music that has kept me alive, that has kept my heart beat. Because this music is about love, it's about community. It's about people coming together and expressing their individuality and expressing their shared humanity. And see, that's what I learned from listening to John Coltrane, to Miles Davis, to the people who you all are listening to today. And the same people who said that it was going to rain today, said they are going to kill me on the 16th of November 2023. I don't believe them. I refuse to accept that. Fuck that. I wrote a book. I'm a high school dropout. But I wrote a book called Condemned. Every word of that is what I've been through. Every word of it. And I guess documents to substantiate everything I'm saying. These people threw me in here because they thought I was a nigga. They thought because I was a high school dropout, and they thought I would never learn how to fight for myself. But John Coltrane taught me how to fight. And I just want to again just say thank you. Tomorrow I hope you there, brother. Your music transformation reminded me that life is about transformation. I just want to thank you for that contribution to Musicians United. You know, I called in a little early and was able to listen to a little of the music being played live. And, you know, I'm in a puddle of tears right now. You know, not sad tears, just humble tears. Just the affirmation to let me know that I'm on the right path, that the universe is listening. So yeah, I just wanna say thank you to everybody. You know, it's not over with, and you know, if we just keep coming together in this way, you know, we can will the sun to come out, as Jess reminded me the other day. And so thank you, Jess, for that reminder, and much love, everybody. Much love. Everybody my love, man. Let everybody know I'm humbled by it. I'm encouraged by it. I'm inspired by this, and you know, man, it just renewed my energy and fight, man. So you know, I'm going into the final phase of this thing, and I intend to come out and emerge victorious, man, because of this, because of everybody who's coming together to support me. So yeah, much love to everybody, man. Much love. Thanks, buddy. Okay, all right, good. All right, love you too, man. Enjoy the rest of the music, everybody. Much love.
You guys heard him yourself. I love that man, like, very much so. Love him very, very dearly. Oh, man. All right. I got a couple of speakers that are gonna come up. These are two brothers that have experience, direct experience with what solitary confinement can do to an individual. They've been subject to it here in New York State, and I only felt it was appropriate to have some people come to really shed light on this on Keith's behalf, but also to give you all a better sense of the battle that a lot of people are under, not just Keith. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Roger Clark and Jack Davis from Halt Solitary.
Hello? Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Like he said, my name is Roger Clark. I'm a lead at the campaign for alternative to isolated confinement. I also fight for criminal justice reform. I'm an advocate for criminal justice reform here in New York State. First of all, I want to thank you for having me. I want to thank you for coming. I like the band. The band is excellent. And listening to Keith Lamar's story, it's really a sad story, but I've heard it so much time that I hope I don't get numb to it. The problem of wrongful conviction in this country is horrendous. Like even the Innocent Project, who only look at a small amount of cases that have to do with DNA, what they found was startling. Even individuals, victims of crime, you know, in a lot of cases, they point out the wrong individual, and they don't know that they point out the wrong individuals. And even witnesses, they point out the wrong individuals. Prosecutors do a lot of underhand stuff. Once they got it in their mind that you're guilty, they will have somebody come up and give false testimony that they know is wrong. And sometimes the analysts and police also do the wrong thing. So a lot of people have died trying to, after they died is when they found the evidence that, he wasn't guilty to begin with. And I hope that's not the case for Lamar. I would keep him in my prayers. But I want to speak to y'all about solitary confinement. Lamar, once in any state that has the death penalty, once you're sentenced to death, they place you in solitary confinement. And that's wrong. Like, solitary confinement is torture, and it's not torture because Roger Clark said it. It's torture because the United Nations stated that it's torture. So even though New York State do not have the death penalty, New York State does use solitary confinement. I'm formerly incarcerated. I spent 15 years in New York State prison, and I spent 5 years out of those 15 in solitary confinement. So I know what it's like to be in a cell 23 hours a day, a cell the size of an elevator or a parking lot, a parking space, for 23 hours a day, 7 days a week, without the proper human contact, without anything. And to tell you the truth, that is something that it still messes with me even though I'm out of there. It should not be used, and we need to end that practice. So the HEART campaign has a bill called the HEART Solitary Act, and what that bill will do is that bill will limit solitary confinement in New York State. Regardless if you're in county jail or if you're in upstate prisons, you will not be able to be placed in solitary for more than 15 days within a 60-day period. And that would be a lot better than it is today. And the reason why we chose 15 days is because that's what the United Nations stated. They said anything over 15 days is torture. And we should not be torturing individuals. I don't care what they did to get themselves in there or what they didn't do, because everybody that's in there is not guilty of the crime that they did. So we gotta also take that into consideration. So please, I see the lady wearing the HEART Solitary shirt. Let's give her a clap. That's the campaign that I'm with. I didn't bring it today. I meant to put it on, but because I have on black pants, I didn't want to have on all black. But let me let my comrades speak as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Give yourself a round of applause. Before I introduce myself, let's give a moment of silence for those that's suffering, those that died, and those that's going through problems inside SHU. Okay. My name is Jack Davis. I'm formerly incarcerated. I did 30 years in prison. I'm gonna tell you about an issue that's affecting everybody in here. But before I say anything else, I want to ask everybody here, why do somebody keep having to die in order us to continue to fight? We're here because people continue to die, people continue to get slaughtered, and we're here. But why do people have to continue to die in order for us to win this fight? We're fighting hard as we can. We have people just died in New York City Department of Corrections boxes. They call SHU. Some people call it shoes. Some people call it the hole. We have plenty of men and women. The longest person in the state is Lamar Smith. The second one is Billy Blake. One's been in there 38 years. One has been in there 32 years in the box. We're fighting for those men and women that's in the box, even children. If you go to New York State Department of Corrections, they put kids, pregnant women, anybody in SHU. We fight our governor, we fight all the senators, assembly members. We need your help. Don't just come now because there's a gathering and somebody's talking about another brother that's going through the same problems in another state. This is worldwide. We need your help. When you see us marching about closing Rikers Island, when you see us marching about the women's fight in prison, when you see us marching about the kids' fight in prison, when you see us marching about the SHUs in prison, join us. Because we're not just talking for us, the black and brown people. There's young white kids that's in there too. There's young Chinese kids that's in there too. There's young Jewish kids that's in there too. And you know what? They afraid to speak, so we're speaking for them. I seriously pray that y'all actually would not just come now because of Keith Lamar, right? Because there's a lot of Keith Lamars in society and in the street. I'm a Keith Lamar. You know that? I'm a George Floyd. You know that? I'm a Black Lives Matter. So is everybody here a Black Lives Matter. But why do we have to wait because Black Lives Matter when there's really a problem going on? Let's get to the problem and let's get these people to change these laws and these rules. Because the United Nations says 15 days in the box is too much. But you got people that have been in the box 10, 15, 20 years. We don't care what they did because everybody that's standing here did something that we don't want nobody to know about. And the whole solitary campaign is fighting very hard to change these laws. So what we ask that you do for us, we ask that you come and help us. Not just help us, but help close Rikers Island. Right? Help the women and men that's fighting to close Rikers Island. Help us. Help us change the laws about parole, because parole is a big problem too. You know, they won the fight against women that's being chained to the bed when they're pregnant and having babies, right? A young brother that was only 23 years old wrote the law for raise the age. Now he's 26. His brother's name is Angela Pinto, and he's 26 years old. But you see what he did? So what I'm asking all of y'all is this. Don't just come now, please. What I'm asking you is this. Let's not let another person die, or let's not let another person get killed at the hands of the law, right? Let's do what we got to do to get these people to change these laws. Let's get these people to change everything that we want them to change. Because you know what? We only strong as we fight. Please, continue to fight. Don't give up. Thank you.
This song is called Peace of Mind by Idris Muhammad. It's one of those songs that I listen to when I want to slide into the slipstream and be carried away from the surroundings of my circumstances. Over several decades, I wasn't allowed to go outside. Outside, in fact, was a cell with a slit cut into the wall, in which a metal grate with tiny holes cut into it was placed, emitting the occasional breeze. I haven't touched a tree or a blade of grass in over 27 years. How have I survived? Music. It's been my saving grace, the only way I've been able to access that peace of mind from which life takes flight. The music, I can see and touch the world. Through music, I remain connected to life. Peace of Mind by Idris Muhammad. onto this particular piece. When I first heard it, I listened to it over and over again, 100 times maybe. Castellabras means 3 words, Brian told me. And we speculated about what the 3 words could be. And concluded that they had to be I love you, which, given the force with which Joe Henderson approached this piece, is the only thing that makes sense. This is a deeply moving piece of music. I have no idea how many people showed up today, but there's only one person there. You are one person in my struggle, and I love you for that. I just wanted to say that. Tres Palabras by Joe Henderson. Miles Davis. Like most everyone who loves jazz, I admit to being partial to Miles. He somehow embodied everything I thought I wanted to be as a man. He was strong, unyielding, uncompromising. But our idols very seldom live up to our ideal of what we take them to be. And Miles was no exception. He was a human being, after all, and fell short of his promise and potential, as we all do. Still, he reached for something beyond himself and found it, which made me believe I can do the same. For instance, it never entered my mind that I would one day write a book when I was first thrown into the situation that I did. This is a very sweet and poignant song, a reminder that no matter how dark and trying life may become, we must try to be gentle with ourselves. I've listened to this song a million times over the years, and it's brought me back to life every time. It never entered my mind, Miles Davis.
Really quick, before I introduce the next speaker, I just wanted to share this story that Keith shared with me last week, because it kind of really put into context why he is where he is, and it's a much bigger issue with the way in which our society works. So I was talking to Keith, and Keith told me, I said, when did you first go into the justice system? And Keith said, when I was about 13. And I was like, shit, you're 13. And he said he was joyriding with some of his friends in Cleveland in a stolen car, and they got busted. And he was like hanging with some older kids that were like not doing the right thing at the time, and they all had been in and out of the juvenile justice system up until that point. But Keith, hello? Oh, but Keith goes to the judge. The judge lines the four of them up. Keith goes to the judge, and they get to Keith last. The judge is giving all the other guys 6 months, a year, 18 months, and he gets to Keith, and he goes, Keith Lamar, you don't have a record. Like, what brings you here? And Keith's parents are there, his mom and his stepdad. And Keith says, the judge says to his parents, you could deal with him and take him home, or I can deal with him and make the decision on what his fate will be. And Keith's parents just said, you deal with him, and walked out the courtroom. And I get chills hearing that story, because it's like Keith never really had a chance. You think about it in the grand scheme of things, he never really had a chance. Here you have this 13-year-old kid, like, what happens if his parents' response to that is different? Like, would he be where he is right now, today? And what happens if he was like nurtured properly and shown the right way? We see this man today with all this potential. So I always I don't like to think about that story, but it really helps me put into context Keith and his journey and everything that's happened to him. And I thought that was like really important to share with you, because there's other 13-year-old kids out there that are probably dealing and going through the same thing. So we can't forget about them either. But I'll shut up, and I want to introduce the next person that's going to speak and kind of share his love and appreciation for Keith. And this gentleman is the cousin of Eric Garner. He's a good friend of mine, and I'd like to introduce Jason, J. Soul.
Thank you, my brother. And can we give a round of applause for the music that's being played? Thank you so much. So I kind of just want to let everybody know that Keith came into my life about a month ago when I had to run for justice for my cousin Eric. And I met him because I allowed Wally to speak at my event. And then after that, I wanted to do a little more research on what Keith was going through and what he's been going through. And one of the biggest things to me that Keith represents for me is the fact that you could trap somebody's body, but you can't trap their mind. And I think that we all know that now when we just heard Keith speak, when we learn more about him. And I think the biggest thing that made me want to get involved is because I feel like what they're trying to do to him is just not treating him like a human being. And I think that's a bigger societal problem that we have, is that sometimes we're okay with knowing that some people are not treated human. And sometimes we get up in the morning, sometimes we know that something is going on, but because maybe someone was just murdered or this or that, and we show up, and then we kind of go back to our regular lives. And I know when my cousin Eric was murdered, we kind of had this momentum going, and then the momentum stopped, and now George Floyd's situation has happened. The momentum has picked up, but it's like, are we gonna ride this marathon out, or are we just gonna continue to run this sprint for the moment and continue to allow these things to happen? Because one thing I've learned in a month from Keith is that he's a beautiful person, he's a beautiful human being, and he has a soul and a heart that deserves to be shared with the world. And on November 16th of this year, we're gonna do a run for Keith. So I want people to mark their calendars now, because November 16th, 2023 is his execution date that is set. That shouldn't be set for an innocent man. there is not the evidence there that one should want the state of Ohio to penalize this man in this way, but also there is no evidence for him to continue to be in this situation. So like Wally touched on earlier, he does not only want to not receive the death penalty, but he wants the chance to be a free man. And I think that all of us need to do what we can, do a little more research about Keith, because you will find the wrongdoings that lie not only in Keith's situation, but in so many black men and women. I mean, even think about Sandra Bland, right? This was a woman that was pulled over for a routine traffic ticket and is no longer here with us. And then, let's think about our judicial system. There are so many wrongs. There are more jails being built than schools because it makes money. And we have to understand that some people are allowed to lose their life, to be railroaded like Keith has been, so somebody else's pockets can profit. I can't live with that. And I hope all of us can't live with that. Because until people like Keith deserve the right to be treated like a human, I think we all shouldn't be able to walk this life as freely as we think we're walking it. Because if you look right here, love is the only freedom. And I believe that. And that's why I'm going to continue to walk this walk side by side with Keith, because I'll tell you, he's not looking for people to just have pity on him and support him. He's looking for people that will walk this walk right by his side, because he has done all the research, all the reading, getting the knowledge about why this is so wrong, what's being done to him, but to so many young people that do not get the right representation. Because you know what? If Keith had the money and the funds to get the right representation, he would be a free man right now. So I would urge you to not only do your research, but if you could find it in your heart to help us with this movement, because we do need some funds to create more awareness and to get him better representation. So please spread the word so people that might be able to get involved, especially from the law side of this. You know, we need all the support that we can get, because we're not going to stop fighting for Keith. Like Wally touched on earlier as well, he understands what he's facing and what can happen on November 16th, 2023. But like he reminds me every time we speak to each other, if you count that in seconds, we got a lot of time. So let's count that in seconds. Keith has been a light for me, so I would urge you to figure out a way to become involved in this movement, because it's keeping me going in everything that I'm doing right now. And he's got me meditating more. He has me doing more jumping jacks, which I just started a routine today after my 7-mile run. And the most important thing that I would like to share is something that Keith reminds me of in almost every email that he sends me. He's like, J Soul, I need you to walk the path that you want to walk. I want you to be exactly who you want to be, because who you are is what's going to change the world, and that's going to create the change and awareness that we need in this world. And for him to be able to be that voice and be that person to me while he's been in solitary confinement for 27 years lets me know that he is someone that this world needs to know about. And I'm going to continue to push that powerful message that he has pushed on to me. And so J Soul, a brand that I have started, the soul stands for spreading out love equally. And I think that we need to dig deep and figure out how we spread this love out equally to people that are incarcerated, their voices being taken from them, their lives are being taken from them, and they're not receiving the love and support that we can be giving them. So before you leave here today, really try to check yourself and think about, are you doing everything you need to do to help some people that are in need? Because I know one thing that breaks my heart sometimes on a daily is knowing that some of us are living lavishly and, you know, really doing some self-serving things when there are people that are homeless. There are people that are wrongfully accused like Keith. And there are people that are just not given a fair shot in life. So before you leave here, check yourself and make sure that you're doing your part in giving everybody that fair opportunity, because I believe that if Keith had that fair opportunity from when the time he was 13 years old, he would be making an even bigger impact on this world, because I'm not even going to downplay the impact that he's made on my life in just 1 month. So he's already making an impact, but I could only imagine the impact that he would be making if he was free like he should be. So thank you all for being out here. I know this is a very hot day, but the conditions that Keith has to live in on a daily, this is nothing to that. So one love, spread that love, and you are all beautiful people just like Keith is. One love.
Poinciana by Lamar. Lamar is one of my favorites. When I listen to him, I focus on the notes, on the details. That's what jazz is about. Paying attention to life, being alert as opposed to passively wandering through existence. We are alive, so let us wake up and live. This is what Amar and all great musicians is inviting us to do. Wake up and live. This is our one and only life, and our one and only chance to make it mean something. So let's do that. Poinciana by Lamar. and friend, Wally, who helped pull this whole thing together, turned me on to this particular piece a few weeks ago. I think it's great. This is for you, Wally. I hope you enjoy it, little brother. RFK in the Land of Apartheid by Jason Moran.
just wanna, you guys are amazing. Like really, got tears about to stream down my face. The next person I'm gonna introduce, come up to speak. He's one of Keith's favorite musicians. He has an album called The Transformation Suite, which Keith loves. Keith and I often talk about jazz, and Keith is always like, did you listen to Transformation Suite? Did you listen to Transformation Suite? So he loves this artist, and I was able to get connected with this gentleman a couple weeks ago and asked if he would write Keith, and he said no problem. It was like, are you serious? I'll do it. And it just kind of speaks to his character and his heart. And you know, this is the first time I'm meeting this guy, but I got a lot of love for him. Just his spirit is really rich and full. So without further ado, some more Penderhues.
Thank you. I'm honored to be a part of this. Thank you, Waleed, for having me. Thank you to Keith. I know you're listening, and I just want to say I love you so much. I feel like it's a blessing for me to be here. As you mentioned, you know, you guys reached out, letting me know that he had been listening to and was inspired by my music, and we were able to have a conversation on the phone the other day. And I already feel like it's brothers. You know, I already feel like it's brotherhood. I also already feel like he's already one of the best musicians. He's one of the best musicians I know, which is also a reality. You know, I mean, some of the best musicians I know are incarcerated. Some of the best poets I know are incarcerated. Some of the best visual artists. You know, we have so many brilliant folks, you know, lost inside the system, taken from us, caged right now. And that's why all I really need to say is we need to free them all, you know, and Keith needs to be the first. My heart is with you, Keith. My heart is also with everyone who is incarcerated in this country, particularly in this moment where COVID is a life sentence. COVID is the possibility of a death sentence for people even without life sentences. You know, and this country has shown just how little we care about them. In places like California, where there's wildfires right now, we're using them to fight the wildfires. In places like New York, where we haven't given out, the governor has not even given one clemency throughout the whole COVID period. So this is why we really need to continue to fight every day, as everybody's been saying, to free all of our people who are incarcerated in this country and throughout the world. I don't want to talk too long, but what I do want to say is that one thing that Keith shared with me in his writings to me is that he actually wrote a poem or a written piece based on listening or while listening to this piece that they're going to play of mine. And so I wanted to return the favor and read the last passage of that piece that he wrote, because I actually think that it's really like the thesis statement of what I believe this song is about. And he says, this planet we walk on is over 4 billion years old and has witnessed 6 mass extinctions. We are not indestructible. If we can't find our way to a new humanity and create a society that's based on fairness and equality, then all of us, black and white, are going down the same drain. So before it's too late, before the fires and the flood waters come to seal our fate, we must find a better way to walk through this mysterious world. And to the old ways of doing things, to profits over people, to hate over love, to immorality over justice, we should prepare a burial and offer our most sincere condolences. Thank you, Keith, and I love you.
Transformation. That's Maura Penderhues. I have a special fondness for this song because life itself is based on transformation, on evolving and becoming something different than we are now. Too often in this society, only certain people are allowed to change and become better than their former selves. This song is a reminder that we can all do that. Here recently, I've had the distinct pleasure of making the acquaintance of the man who created this beautiful piece of music. And if all has gone according to plan, he should be among you now. I was able to speak with Samora the other day and personally thank him for his contribution. It's hard to believe that someone so young could have such a strong grasp, but here he is. You know, we hear a lot of talk about changing the world, but the real secret is that all we need to do is change ourselves. Ain't that right, Simona? And the good news, we don't have to wait until tomorrow. If we are sincere, we can do it right now, today, and we should. Transformation, that's more Pennyules.
The twinkling of an eye, we shall be changed, shall be changed. We shall be changed in the twinkling of an eye. We shall be changed, shall be changed. Give us just
Supreme by John Coltrane. What can I say about this piece? Probably one of the greatest pieces of music in the history of music. In my humble opinion, of course. When I say it saved my life, I mean that quite literally. Being thrown into this place was like being thrown into the middle of the ocean. And there was a time when I was drowning in the sorrow of it all. An old man named Snoop, who was also on death row when I arrived here, let me listen to his copy of A Love Supreme. First, he told me the story about how John Coltrane went up into his attic, like Moses going up on the mountain, forsaking food and human contact in order to pull from himself the spiritual offering. The album is broken down in 4 parts: acknowledgement, resolution, pursuance, and song. These are the 4 things that must be done in order to overcome adversity. First, we must acknowledge the problem, resolve to do something about it, pursue the remedy, and give thanks to the Lord for the love, strength, and focus it takes to persevere. The opening lines of Psalm begins, I will do all I can to be worthy of thee, O Lord. These are the words with which I begin each day. And as the day unfolds, I remind myself that God is, that love is, and that it all has to do with it. And that my efforts are not in vain. John Coltrane taught me that.
Hello everybody, how are you doing? My name is Albert, and before we play this last beautiful piece, I don't know if you agree, but I think that Kid curated an incredible set list. Wonderful choice. Before we play the last tune, I wanted to thank each one of the musicians on the stage. As you know, right now, everything got shut down, so musicians are unemployed. And I cannot thank them enough for coming today on a Sunday, in a very hot Sunday, and play here for how many hours, Wally? So 3 hours for free. I love you all. I cannot thank you enough. So many people got involved to make this happen. Some of them arranged the tunes that you just heard because there was no music. We had to create the music. Some of them carried their instruments here. All of them, in fact, carried their instruments. A lot of people worked hard to make this happen, and I thank each one of you. This piece is called Acknowledgement, and it's part of an album called A Love Supreme. At the end of the piece, John Coltrane's quartet ends singing the melody. Can you play it, Wham Bam? A love supreme, a love. And it's a very unique moment, I think, of this album. So I will need all of you at the end of this piece to sing with us for Kid, A Love Supreme.
Supreme.
supreme, a love 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 supreme.
Not that tall. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys again. Give it up for Musicians United. Come on, louder, louder. Thank you guys. Louder. Let's go. They were so generous with their time. Gave us 3 hours today. So I know how much this means to Keith. A lot of you guys could hear how much it means to Keith. I could feel his tears, and his heart was so overflown that mine was overflown, and I know that sentiment rings true for a lot of people that are here. Before we close, I just want to give a special thank you to a few people, because without them, none of this would be happening right now. First, I want to thank Albert and Julian Weller, because Julian, raise your hand. They really organized this. I was just a little part, you know, but they really put it all together. So thank you. Much gratitude. I also want to thank Brian Jackson, who is a musician. It's not here, but I know if he could be here, he would be here, and none of this would be happening if it wasn't for him. I wouldn't even know who Keith Lamar was if it wasn't for Brian Jackson introducing me to who he is. In saying that, Brian and Keith co-host a podcast. It's called Pieces of a Man. Pieces of a Man podcast. I highly recommend that you guys go on iTunes, Spotify, so forth, and subscribe to that. It's interesting to hear Keith talk about a range of different things. So shout out to Brian Jackson. I also want to thank Jay Soul for coming out and supporting and speaking on Keith's behalf. And everybody's been asking me, who's this little lady behind the scenes? But I want to thank Jess Lynn. Jess, you've been a force with all of this, and you're special. Raise your hand, Jess. You're back there. But she's a force. She's like a little earthquake. I also want to thank Justice for George, NYC, and Make Noise for Black Lives Matter. They really helped promote and push this, so big up to them. And the last person I want to thank, because she's been on Keith's team forever. We call ourselves the Keith Freedom Crew, and she is the center of it all. Amy Gordy-Drew. I didn't get it at first. She was like had so much love for Keith. I was like, what the hell did Keith do? But her enthusiasm for Keith and her push and fight for Keith is something that I am inspired by every day. She goes to the prison, drops things off for him, like she's there. She's literally on the ground. And drove all the way here from Ohio over in the middle of the night and brought her whole family, her children, her husband. So she is, I don't know if you have anything, you want to say anything? Yeah? Yeah. She was so excited to be here. And I'm so glad you came, so thank you. And really, that's it. I also want to thank all of you for coming. I think Keith really his heart is full, and I can't wait to talk to him tomorrow morning, and because I know he's gonna call.
He's on the phone now.
Oh, he's on the phone now. I love you, Keith. I love you, Keith. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart on Keith's behalf. And I feel like it's only appropriate and fitting for Keith to close out. Also, I want to just say one last thing. Make sure you follow Justice for Keith Lamar on Instagram, Twitter. We really need to help elevate his profile and bring some awareness to his situation. So if you can follow, tag, repost, send it to your friends. Like, people need to know who Keith is. I highly recommend you read his book because it will change your life. Yeah, if you could help us and support and elevate the profile, Keith really needs, what he really needs is some attorneys with expertise in appellate and post-conviction law. And that's what we're pushing for, and that's what we're trying to get him. Trying to get him a retrial so we can bring all the facts to the table and we can really prove that he is actually innocent, and we can expose this injustice and so many more because Keith's life matters just as much as George's, just as much as Breonna's, just as much as Eric Garner, and he's still alive, he's still breathing. Let's make his life matter, people. Let's make his life matter. And I'm gonna let Keith close this one out. So, thank you guys.
Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I've heard it said that New York City is the center of the universe, which is why I came to you first. I need your help, New York City. These good people in the state of Ohio intend to use my death as an example of what happens to those who stand up to challenge their authority. However, inasmuch as my life is not for them to take, I intend to fight them to the bitter end if need be. And I hope you will join me in this fight. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, everybody. Get home safe.